Somewhere right now, an account is being sold like a used car. It has a join date from years ago, a profile photo that has aged a little, a scatter of old posts, a handful of real-looking friends, and a quiet history of ordinary logins from a normal-looking phone. The buyer never met the person it pretends to be. There may never have been a person at all. And the strange thing is that the account is worth real money for one reason only. It looks old, it looks lived in, it looks like it has a past, and online, a past is the one thing you cannot simply buy at the moment you need it. So the question underneath this whole hidden market is simple. Why is a brand new account trusted less than an old one? And what kind of economy grows up around a fact like that? That is what this video is about. How platforms decide who to trust, how that trust is faked, how the fakes get caught, and why the very act of manufacturing trust leaves a pattern that is almost impossible to hide. Jume you camulate. Start with the thing everyone feels but rarely names. When you make a new account anywhere, you are treated like a stranger. You hit more checks, you see more captchas, your reach is quietly limited, your messages are more likely to be held, your first few actions are watched more closely than they will ever be watched again. None of this is an accident. A fresh account is the cheapest thing in the world to create, which means it is the favorite tool of everyone trying to do something a platform does not want. So platforms do the natural thing. They treat trust as something you earn slowly, rather than something you are handed at the door. Age, history, normal patterns of use, real connections to other real accounts, all of it adds up over time into a quiet score that decides how much rope you get. The account that has behaved like a person for 3 years has earned the benefit of the doubt. The account that was born an hour ago has earned nothing yet. What an old account really proves, it helps to be precise about what age is actually standing in for, because the date itself is not magic. A platform does not trust an old account because the calendar says so. It trusts it because old accounts that behaved normally for a long time are statistically very unlikely to be disposable tools. The age is a proxy for cost. Anything that survived years of ordinary use without getting flagged represents time and patience that a throwaway operation usually cannot spare. An account with years of uneven, human-looking activity, logins at human hours, gaps for sleep and weekends, a messy spread of interests, is expensive to fake convincingly. Real connections matter even more. An account woven into a web of other genuine accounts, people who actually know each other, is far harder to manufacture than the account itself. Trust online is really just accumulated evidence that something has behaved like a person for a long time. There is one more layer worth naming, which is consistency. A real account does not just have a history, it has a coherent one. The same device tends to show up, the same rough location, the same habits, the same small ways of doing things, all hanging together into a portrait that is hard to assemble on purpose. A platform is not asking whether any single fact looks human. It is asking whether all the facts agree with each other, the way a real life quietly agrees with itself. That agreement, built up without anyone trying, is the most expensive thing of all to fake. The practice of warming an account. Once you understand that age and history are the valuable part, you can see why a whole practice grew up around manufacturing them. In the trade, it is called warming. The idea is to take a freshly made account and let it sit and act ordinary for a while before it is ever used for the thing it was actually made for. The goal is to cross the gap from obviously new to plausibly lived in. A warmed account is not used hard on day one. It logs in gently, looks around, follows a few normal things, sits idle for stretches, comes back, behaves like someone with a slow, ordinary life rather than a tool with a job to do. The entire point is to buy the thing age represents, the appearance of a harmless history, without actually waiting years for it. It is patience compressed into a process, and it exists precisely because platforms made patience the price of trust. The market for aged accounts. Warming takes time, and time is the one input you cannot rush past completely. So a second answer emerged. Instead of aging an account yourself, you buy one that is already old. There is a real market in aged accounts, accounts that genuinely sat around for years, or were quietly maintained until the day someone wanted one with a believable past already attached. The price tracks exactly what the platform values. Older costs more than newer. An account with real history and real connections costs more than an empty one. An account on a platform that checks hard costs more than one on a platform that barely checks at all. You are not really buying an account in these markets. You are buying a head start on trust, a shortcut past the suspicious early period that every new account has to walk through. The existence of that price is the clearest proof that the trust itself is the scarce thing, and the pricing reveals something the platforms themselves believe. When an aged account with a real history sells for many times the price of a fresh one, the market is quietly agreeing with the defender about what is hard to make. Nobody pays a premium for something easy to reproduce. The entire price list is, in effect, a map of where the checks are strongest and where trust is most expensive to forge, drawn by the people trying to forge it. Why fresh accounts get the hard look. Now flip to the defender's side, because all of this is a response to how platforms actually behave toward the new. A brand new account lives inside a kind of probation. It gets lower limits on how much it can do, tighter thresholds before something looks suspicious, more frequent identity checks, less reach, slower trust on anything it says or sends. The system is deliberately less forgiving of an account that has not earned anything yet. This is rational rather than cruel. Since fresh accounts are cheap and disposable, they are where most abuse begins. So the cheapest place for a platform to spend its suspicion is right at the start. The probation is not really aimed at you. It is aimed at the flood of throwaway accounts that you happen to look exactly like on day one. The whole warming economy exists to survive that probation quietly, and the whole detection effort exists to make sure surviving it is harder than it looks. How farms get caught. Part 1. So how does the defending side actually find manufactured trust? The first and oldest answer is the device. Every account has to live somewhere, on some phone, some browser, some machine, and that hardware carries a fingerprint made of dozens of small traits. When one operation runs hundreds or thousands of accounts, those accounts tend to share equipment, or share the small imperfect signatures of equipment set up the same way. Defenders cluster on that. They look for the same fingerprint appearing under many supposedly unrelated identities, the same handful of devices logging into a suspiciously large family of accounts, the same setup repeated again and again, with tiny variations. One account on one phone is invisible. 1,000 accounts wearing the fingerprints of a small rack of phones is a shape that stands out the moment someone looks at the crowd instead of the individual. How farms get caught. Part 2. Behavior is the second net, and it is harder to slip. Real human activity is gloriously inconsistent. People log in at odd hours, drift between interests, go quiet for days, do things in no particular order. A farm trying to warm many accounts efficiently tends to do the opposite, because efficiency means routine. Accounts that all wake at the same time, all follow the same kinds of things in the same order, all rest and act on the same rhythm, look less like a crowd of people and more like one process wearing many faces. This is where scale quietly turns into the weakness. One warmed account behaving a little too tidily might pass. 1,000 of them behaving tidily in the same way is a signature. Defenders are not really judging any single account against a human. They are noticing that the whole group moves together in a way real strangers never do. The two similar life stories. There is a subtler tell, and it is almost poetic. Manufactured accounts often share a life story that is just a little too alike. The same kinds of names, the same shape of profile, photos drawn from the same kind of source, the same thin spread of believable but generic detail. Each one on its own looks fine. Side by side, they rhyme. Real people are messy and specific in ways that are weirdly hard to fake at volume. Their histories contradict each other, their details are oddly particular, their connections are tangled and personal. A batch of accounts built from the same template carries a family resemblance no individual member can see in the mirror, and that resemblance is exactly what a defender looking across thousands of profiles at once is trained to feel. The social graph gives it away. Then there is the web of connections, which may be the single hardest thing to fake. Real accounts are embedded in a genuine social graph. They know people who know other people, in clusters that overlap the way real life overlaps. A manufactured account either has no real connections, which is itself suspicious, or it is connected mostly to other manufactured accounts, which forms a tight little island that touches the real world almost nowhere. Defenders map that graph and look for those islands. Clusters of accounts that mostly know each other and almost no genuine outsiders, friend networks that appeared all at once instead of growing over years, communities with no real bridges to the wider world. A single fake can hide in a real crowd. A crowd of fakes that only know each other draws its own outline, and the outline is the evidence, the signature of bulk creation. Finally, there is the moment of birth itself. Accounts made by a person trickle in, one here, one there, from scattered places, with all the small friction of a real human signing up. Accounts made by a farm tend to arrive in bursts, created faster than people sign up, from the same narrow range of addresses, through the same automated path, with the same little shortcuts taken every time. That bulk creation leaves a signature before the accounts have done anything at all. Even spread across time and addresses to look more natural, the underlying sameness tends to surface, because the cheaper it is to make an account, the more identically each one gets made. Defenders watch the front door as closely as everything behind it, and a batch born too neatly is suspicious long before it is ever worn. Why the manufacturing always shows, step back and the whole picture has one shape. Trust online is a slow-built asset. It is earned by behaving like a real, specific, connected person over a long stretch of time, and the reason it is valuable is that it is genuinely expensive to produce honestly. That expense is the entire point. It is what makes an old, trusted account a meaningful signal at all. And that is exactly why people try to manufacture it. When something valuable is slow to make, a market always appears to make it faster, by warming, by buying, by aging accounts in bulk. But manufacturing trust at scale runs straight into a wall. The thing that makes real trust trustworthy is that it is messy, individual, and slowly grown. Anything mass-produced is almost by definition too consistent, too connected to its own kind, too neatly born. The manufacturing leaves a pattern, because the pattern is the difference between a crowd of strangers and one operation pretending to be many. If this is the kind of thing you find yourself thinking about, the quiet machinery of trust under everything you do online, then this channel is your sort of place. There is no product here, nothing to sell you, just the systems taken apart and explained by someone who has spent a long time on the inside of them. Subscribe and follow the rabbit hole. Diggan Tambambia Hanamdan to the addresses themselves. The proxy cat and mouse, how IPs get burned and reborn, why an address that worked perfectly yesterday is poisoned today, and the strange afterlife of a number that too many people have already used. It is the same story as this one, told in pure infrastructure, and it is closer than you think.